when you have people who set these expectations thinking that, okay, I got to be a certain age to do this, I got to be a certain age to do that, what are your advice to help them through it thinking that, you know what, it's literally, in so many cases, never too late?
Absolutely. I think what you talked about not only is some trauma piece, but it's also social conditioning around, what society expects you to have or to do by certain periods of our life to be successful, air quotes, successful. So that's a lot of social conditioning that adds additional pressure, right? To I have to attain this in order to be worthy. And so that's some deep-seated trauma right there. Is there's a story they're telling themselves that they're not worthy if they're not in relationship by 30. So that's where I would go to is I'd be like, okay, when you say you have to be in a relationship by 30, or, you're not successful, or, it's hopeless, whatever that looks like, what's the story you tell yourself around that, and try to start to get them to kind of dig a bit deeper and figure out what the story is they're telling and where did that come from, and is that the truth? Because at the end of the day, that story that we're telling ourselves that keep us bound in those limiting beliefs is a younger version of ourselves. Mine is 7-year old Trina. That story of you're not good enough, you're not worthy, nobody sees you, that's 7-year old Trina. So when she starts to talk, I know I have to kind of turn in, you know, from my 53-year-old version of myself now that's wiser and more intellectual, and I can contextualize what's happened to me and all those things, and turn to her and go, you absolutely are. You're so worthy, you're so loved, and you're so seen. You don't need other people to love you or approve of you, or to, go out with you or marry you. That's not what determines your worth, right? You're good enough just because you're you. And so, that's kind of parenting our inner child. Sometimes that's referred to as that. And it's just recognizing when that little child is starting to talk out of fear and out of that trauma space, and turning in and knowing nobody can give us what we need. That has to come internally.
That internal conversation that you mentioned, the internal voice, do you find that some people ignore it for the voices of the outside world?
Yeah, and I don't even think some people are even aware of that inner dialogue, right? Because it's just there. I think the last research I heard is we have 60 to 70 thoughts in a day, and 90% of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday and the day before that, right? And it's our thoughts that create our emotional response, and it's our emotional response that create our behaviors and our choices. Like, it's just so intertwined and multi-layered that it gets really hard to kind of pull apart and unpack. But I think there's a lot of people who are just surviving, right? Who are living in their head, disconnected from their body, not being present, not being maybe mindful of what that inner chatter, that inner voice is saying, or even how they're being triggered, or, all of those things. Because it's just easier to kind of live disconnected. And lots of people are disconnected because it isn't safe to be within their body. And we have to really be present and in our body to be mindful of what that conversation is what that story or what that voice is saying in our head.
I give the example of that to someone, well, my partner, and I was telling her that the way I view relationships is that every day you have to think about it like a piggy bank, a bank account. Every day you have to put a deposit into it, right? You have to make sure that there's more deposits than withdrawals. And she's like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "Well, withdrawal is like, I hate you. You pissed me off today. Like something that they did that triggers you." And you made a good point, right? Where you're upset, you left the dishes on the table, you didn't flush the toilet. I don't know. I'm just making up as I go along, right?
Yeah.
The deposit is, I love you. Hope you have a good day. I'm thinking of you, right? So once you do all that at the end of every day, are you in a positive balance, more deposits than withdrawals, or are you in a negative balance, more withdrawals than deposits? She's like, that's a good way of thinking. So now I get these beautiful messages and my work is done, right? So so when I shared that, I said that, but you also have to do that for yourself,
Mm.
right? Because I gave someone else the example after I gave her that one. This is someone I was working with. I was like, how many negative thoughts do you have of yourself? Trina, long list. I had to tell, whoa, 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 calm down. Like, we only have an hour, right? And then I was like, okay, how many positive thoughts do you have of yourself? She had to get back to me.
Mm.
It took her about 2 days, right? Because negativity for a lot of people, it sticks. Positivity just bounces back, right?
Mm.
So when we're discussing how to make sure that someone is treating them in the way that they hope that other people treat them, right? Because we all look for love. So many of us look for love externally. Let me go find a husband, let me go find a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. Let me surround myself with all these cool friends. But then you have people, if you were to sit them down in their house by themselves, they can't even stand themselves, right? Because once they're alone with their own thoughts, the mind starts to wander. They think they're fat, they're ugly, they're short, they're broke, I got bills. How do we get people to the point where it starts with appreciating yourself to get through what you've been through? How do we start with that?
That is such a that is that's such a deep question, Train. And so, how do we start that? Well, I think it starts with personal responsibility, right? It starts with recognizing, are you where you want to be? Are you happy? Do you have joy? And if you don't, then the question is, why not? And what are you going to do about it? I hate to say it's just that blunt, but that's the reality. Nobody's responsible for your well being or the outcomes you have in your life except for you. And our thoughts, our behaviors, our choices are all creating our reality. So we have a choice. We can stay in that space of being disconnected and disempowered and feeling like life is happening to us, or we can do the work, and it is work. It's messy, it's hard, and it's uncomfortable. But my God, it is so worth it, because then we make that shift to being empowered and creators in our own life. And everything shifts. It doesn't mean that means perfection. I still have bad days. I still get down. I still, have negative moments, or, fear creeps in. That's always going to happen, but it's where are you living the majority of the time? And are you accountable for your life and your outcomes? And I think part of it, honestly, Tarina, is we are in such a quick fix society. It's like, oh, I don't feel good, take a pill, right? Oh, it's broken, throw it away and get a new one.